We'll start the board meeting. Today is August 16th at 6 o'clock, and we're here at the Addison Township offices, 1440 Rochester Road. If we could all stand for the pledge, please. And, do we have a veteran in the audience at all? Any veterans? We have a veteran right here. Go right ahead and start then, Bob.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stay
Stay
standing.
standing.
Please stay
Lord, now guide
standing.
us during this meeting tonight. But guide us with your wisdom. Guide the audience also with your wisdom. In the Lord's name we pray. Amen.
Okay. If we could have a roll call, please.
Yes. Karen Cowell. Here. Jacob. Here. Linda Garrett. Present. Edward Field.
Here.
Lori Fisher.
Present.
Bennett. Present. Supervisor Pearson.
Present. We're all here today. Any announcements?
No.
Okay, department reports as usual are available in my office. Contact myself or Jamie, my deputy. Petitions? No petitions? We're going to order of business. Approval of the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll support.
We have motion and support. Any discussion? Not hearing any. Can we have roll call on that, please?
Yes. Karen Cowell.
Yes.
Jacob Newby.
Yes.
Linda Garrett. Yes. Edward Field.
Yes.
Lori Fisher.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Yes, this is a brief consent agenda for this evening. It consists of the approval of the minutes for July 19th, 2021, approval of the bills as paid for July, the Addison Township Federal Procurement Conflict of Interest Policy.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Anybody would like to discuss anything on it? Not hearing anybody. Can we have roll call on that, please?
Yes, Edward Field.
Yes.
Linda Garrett. Yes. Karen Cowell. Yes. Jacob Newby.
Yes.
Lori Fisher.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. Okay, that passes. We'll move on to item number 2, which is the public hearing and resolution for Consumers Energy Company Gas Franchise Ordinance 21-1. This is an ordinance that requires action every 30 years. It must be the 30th year. It was advertised and approved by our township legal, Mr. Davis, who is here. We're going to have a public hearing on it, and I'm going to open up the hearing, and that's where the public gets to speak, we don't speak, and if anybody has anything to say about the Consumers Energy Gas Franchise, please speak. We'll open the meeting here, and we'll call it 6:02. If anybody would like to speak concerning the resolution on Consumers Energy Company, and I'll ask one more time if anybody would like to speak. Not hearing any. And we'll say we'll close the meeting at 6:03. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to move the resolution adopting Consumers Energy Company Gas Franchise Ordinance 21-1.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Any discussion? No discussion. Do we have roll call on that, please?
Yes. Jacob Newby.
Yes.
Linda Garrett. Yes. Karen Cowell. Yes. Edward Field.
Yes.
Lori Fisher.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. Will you move the resolution? Okay, item number 3. This is the hearing for the determination of a dangerous building hearing at 1849 Rochester Road. Is Frank Harry here? Is Frank here? Oh, okay, that's what I need to know. I just want to make sure you're there. Okay, we're here tonight for a dangerous building hearing at 1849 Rochester Road. The applicable ordinance is Article 4, dangerous building, Section 10. The parcel number, ID number is 0527227-013. At this time, I'll give you that a hearing was held in May after notification from the owner that he did not receive the notice. In certified mail, apparently it was sitting down at the Detroit Post Office for a few weeks. Not a surprise, I guess. The notice, the township issued a second notice on July 14th, 2021 by registered mail to the note, and the notice was received by the record owner. Is it Harry Daly or Frank Daly? Harry Daly, right? Am I correct? We have two different names, that's, okay. On July 16th, it was received. I'll read portion of the dangerous building ordinance that pertains to tonight's hearing. Section 10-93, if a building or structure is found to be a dangerous building, the enforcing agency shall issue a notice that the building or structure is a dangerous building. The notice shall specify the time and place for hearing on whether the building or structure is a dangerous building. The person to whom the notice is directed shall have the opportunity to show cause at the hearing why the hearing officer should not order the building or structure to be demolished, otherwise made safe or properly maintained. The hearing took place on February 9th, 2021 at a dangerous building hearing. It was held with Harry Daly, property owner, and Richard Daly, the nephew. Cosimo Lombardo as the hearing officer, Doug Lowe, and Supervisor Pearson, whereas the property owner had the opportunity to be heard. Section 10.94, not more than 5 days after the completion of the hearing officer shall render a decision either closing the proceedings or ordering the building or structure demolished, otherwise made safe or properly maintained. On February 10th, 2021, a notice was issued to Mr. Daly that the findings of the dangerous building officer citing Section 10-915 and Section 10.917. If the hearing officer determines that the building or structure should be demolished, otherwise made safe or properly maintained, the hearing officer shall so order, fixing a time in the order for the owner, agent, or leasee to comply with the order. The dangerous building officer goes on to determine that the structure is in irreparable state and to order the structure demolished within 60 days of the notice. The Township Board shall fix the date not less than 30 days after the hearing prescribed in Section 10-93 for a hearing on the findings and order of the hearing officer, and shall give notice to the owner, agent, or leasee in the manner prescribed in Section 10-93 of the time and place of the hearing. At the hearing, the owner, agent, or leasee shall be given the opportunity to show cause why the order should not be enforced. The Township Board shall either approve, disapprove, or modify the order. If the Township Board approves or modifies the order, the Township Board shall take all necessary action to enforce the order. If the order is approved or modified, the owner, agent, or leasee shall comply with the order within 60 days after the date of the hearing under this subsection. The owner is here today, and if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, Frank Daly.
Okay, Frank Daly.
I was Harry, then I changed my name.
You changed your name, okay, but
Frank,
Frank.
a little closer,
No, I can hear you, no, that's fine.
but I can't hear you.
Okay, well, I'll speak a little louder, okay? Okay.
I want to hear all the stuff you were saying before.
Okay. If you'd like to address the board, go ahead and address the board.
Okay, well,
Okay, Mr. Davis, our attorney, is here because of the hearing tonight, so I'll let our attorney speak.
what happened, I got,
Just 1 minute.
Sir, let me just, for the audience and for the board perspective, Bruce did a good job summarizing the ordinance scheme. You have a pretty comprehensive ordinance on this issue, which lays out your procedures. What you should be looking at, interestingly, would be the very first section where you provided a list of conditions and/or issues, 9 of them, and if any one of them are found, then a building is determined to be a dangerous building. So in section 1091, under definitions, you define, to help you, what is a dangerous building, and you go through 9 criteria, and again, only one has to be found in order for a structure to be declared a dangerous building. And your ordinance then goes on to say that, hey, once we find that a building is a dangerous building, we don't want people dwelling there and we don't want people living there until it's resolved. So as Supervisor Pearson was laying out, you then created a notice process where the township reaches some initial conclusion that the structure could be a dangerous building. Supervisor Pearson then appoints somebody who is a non-employee of the township to serve as the hearing officer, and a board is convened, a notice is given, and that's where the testimony and the hearing is taking place at the dangerous building hearing level. And findings are made, and then your ordinance gives you a certain amount of time to transmit those findings. And then if the person impacted by it does not follow the order of the dangerous board findings, then it works its way back to the township board, and which is why you're here this evening. So in a sense tonight, it's a show cause relationship. You have,
Guys, tell me, can I talk now or?
just let me, I'm getting paid by the word, so let me just go a little longer. So what the show cause relationship at the hearing tonight is such that this board, the township board, has already received a recommendation from the dangerous building board. And they're taking that in, and they're either going to accept it, they're gonna modify it and accept it, or they're gonna reject it, and then they're gonna set a time period for action to be taken. The purpose of the hearing is to let you come forward and show why the dangerous board conclusions were wrong, why they had reached the wrong conclusion. And so this isn't a rehearing of the dangerous board hearing. This is a show cause where you're able to come before the township board and show cause why the dangerous board findings were incorrect. And that's why we're here tonight, and it's my understanding you're here and you received notice, correct?
Yes,
And you're here because you received that notice?
yes,
And now you're going to present your position with respect to the findings of the dangerous board
Yes.
hearing, right?
yes.
So does anyone on our board, the township board, have any procedural questions before we start? Thank you for letting me finish, sir, and now I think we're prepared to hear from you.
Okay, thank you. Just jump right from here.
Yeah, you can go right ahead.
Sure.
Well, I got most about it. But I got real sick, and I couldn't pick my head up, and I kept thinking I'd get better, and I could pick my head up for maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds, go to the bathroom or something, and I kept thinking I'd get better, and I did, and I have cats and a little dog, and then the cats, I usually clean the kennel and stuff, but I couldn't clean it because I was sick. I couldn't hold my head up. But I kept, like I said, I don't know when the time was messed up. I kept thinking they'd get better, you know, and so something happened to my wife. She died at this time, you know, and I couldn't check. I didn't check on her for a while because I was sick myself, and I was in the living room, and she was in the bedroom, you know, and we've been arguing. She couldn't. She overdone these opiates. I've been trying to get her to stop. And I couldn't get her to stop. And she overdid it, you know.
I think he had some recommendations about the building. It would be proper for him to speak. Okay, go.
Well, I think everybody appreciates Mr. Daly's situation, and we're very compassionate about that. But I base my decision and position not entirely just on my observations, but I have 3 professionals here that reviewed the structure, and all three of them say the same thing. It cannot be salvaged.
Excuse me?
It cannot be salvaged. It must
What can be salvaged?
The structure,
The septic.
the structure, the building.
Why is that?
I'm basing my decision, my opinion on these three professionals that were
Well,
inside.
you base your opinion, don't mean anything. What's your opinion based on?
Mr. Daly, one of them was the person that you hired to do the cleaning.
Oh, you don't like it?
No, I thought he was fine, but he told me that the building was not salvageable.
Well, I get another person.
I've got a record of that conversation.
This is a hearing, so let's not go back and forth. Please
Anyhow.
just speak, please, can you just speak to the board and can you wait till he's done?
Okay. Yeah, if the guy doesn't think, if the guy doesn't think he can be, well, I'll get somebody else in to
Okay,
calculate it.
okay, just hold on, let me,
All
let's
you gotta do
hear,
is stamp, prove the stamp.
oh, just 1 minute. From the building official,
Okay, this all started September 2nd of 2020. And it was a result of a deceased person in the dwelling for an extended period of time. Not to mention all the cats and whatever else is going on there. I have a statement here from the assistant chief that it's the worst thing that he's ever seen in his 14 years of experience. And it was infested with maggots and flies and fleas and cats and all
Well,
kinds of.
just hold on 1 minute.
Go ahead, we'll finish this.
Okay, so that was September 2nd. Then subsequent to that, I think the family hired somebody to attempt to clean the structure. That was Atlas Cleaning. That's the individual that I dealt with, and he's the one that told me, he was the owner of the company, told me that the structure was not salvageable and that he was not gonna go back in there and it needed to be demoed. Then there was another individual hired, a licensed pesticide, Hunter Pest Control. I've got a statement here from him. He says the same thing. The structure is not salvageable. It must be demolished.
Well, sir, the floor is.
Just hold on 1 minute. Were there any incidences before that incident? I know before that September, Oakland County, I believe, came and took out 50-some cats.
Yes. I didn't mention that, but I did speak with the animal control officer that was there too. He was there for days and days removing and trapping cats and various animals out of the structure. So he went in with full, hazmat.
May I ask you this, in your observation, the ceiling, I know I have been there, but the ceiling, there's no more drywall in this, it's visqueen because what we surmise the cats got into the attic there and the urine collapsed.
Yeah, I understand. It just can't poop and piss. I mean, it's a hell. You could clean it up and I can do carpet shampoo going over every damn day till it's clean.
Here since the board determined to review ways to expand the use of the cemetery. As you know, the cemetery is only so big and eventually we'll run out of spaces up there. So we're looking at what other cemeteries and other municipalities are doing by putting up these monuments so that you can put ashes into them. After much research and everything, and Pauline has done a lot of this research. There are only a few manufacturers throughout the U.S. and we didn't locate one in Michigan, I don't believe, or did we?
Yes.
We have one now in Michigan. Before we go any further, everyone has seen the prices. Have you seen all on the board? Have you seen the prices? I know that we did authorize some money up to a certain amount before, and I think that was last year we were looking at this. With that, I'd like to ask the board for a motion to waive purchasing ordinance, as it's a professional service. We want it done right, and it's a professional service. There's a limited number of firms. So number one, we have two manufacturers that gave some estimates. One, I know Pauline went over to Independence Township and looked at theirs, and they used, I believe, is it the number one, is that correct, with the columns, is that what we're looking at?
Yes.
That's the number one estimate?
Calaveria USA or Sunset.
Yes, and I know Pauline went over to Independence Township, and they were extremely happy with that. But anyways, I'd ask our board, first of all, do we want to waive the purchasing order as this is professional service?
I'll make that motion just to get it out of the way. I'd like to make the motion, we waive the purchasing ordinance before the discussion.
Okay. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
And we do have a second. Anybody have anything they'd like to add about that?
Is that just so that we can discuss the purchase
Correct.
of it? Because it looks like there was three.
Yeah, we haven't purchased anything. We're just saying that there's very few people here that offer that. And,
Wait, will you give me some papers before I leave, or?
no, we're all done right now. You can contact the building official tomorrow, and he'll explain how to get all the paperwork.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you, Mr. Dale.
Somebody out there?
So, pardon?
Who's gonna explain it?
Is that your nephew behind, is the building official? If you'll direct him to the building official tomorrow, call tomorrow, and he'll be able to help you with that, okay? Thank you. Okay, where was I now? Okay, so anyways, we have a motion, we have a second on just waiving the purchasing ordinance as this is professional service. And do we have any other discussion? No further discussion. We have roll call on that, please.
Jacob Newby.
Yes.
Linda Garrett.
Yes.
Karen Garvel.
Yes.
Ed Redfield.
Yes?
Lori Fisher.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. Okay, now I'm just gonna turn this over to Pauline, only because she's gotten all of the estimates. She's gone out and looked at the different sites, and let's see what she has to offer.
Thank you. It's been a while since the board said to go forward with this, and we've tried to research different avenues in order to make it cost effective and also how to grow a cemetery for the longest lifetime. In talking to quite a few funeral home directors and those that deal with columbariums, it seems like columbarium is the way to go because it uses up the least amount of space that is available at a cemetery. Through talking to one of the funeral directors, they did send me to Independence Township. I checked out their columbariums. I was really impressed because it almost looks like the wall from DC when you're sitting there with the colors and how it is just a straight wall. So then I called Independence Township DPW, actually takes care of that cemetery, and they hooked me up with a name. They also said that they were very, very thrilled with this company, very easy to work with. And they also led me on to another thing, that instead of going to suppliers, go directly to the companies and have our engineer do the design, not the design work, but also come up with the foundation. So after talking to them, I did some research and I found 5 manufacturers that would come up when I did that research. 2 of them are in Canada. ICOF is in Minnesota. KMI is in California, and Everest is in North Carolina. I contacted all 5. I received actually a response from 4. One said to deal with the supplier, they will not deal direct. The other one is in Minnesota, and he was able to supply us his bid list, and then 2 were from Canada. I'm not going to read everything, but Columbarium USA price was $38,900, and that includes the pillar on the side. And if you didn't want the pillar on the side, it's going to be $37,000. The next company that responded is Kyber. They're also in Canada, and their estimate was $36,345. And then the latest one, ICOF, he's in Minnesota. His estimate is $47,120, and they're all for the 96 number niche. I've talked with all 3 of these manufacturers. They are all very responsible, and they said that we have to be responsible for determining the foundation size, and we need to make recommendations as a policy of what size niches are going to be placed there. The thing that impressed me, I think they were all great, they would all do a good job, was the one company, without me even asking them, took it a step further. They brought up our cemetery on their screen and said, oh, we can't make it through Drainer Road. And I said, well, you'll have to go through Walker. Oh, we might not be able to make it under your sign, so we might have to do something else. And then she went through and said, if you're gonna hire an engineer, you need to have a soil boring test done so that you won't have a leaning tower of Pisa. I mean, she was just a wealth of information, and I just wanted an estimate. So it's like, I really thought that was very informational from a company.
What company was that?
Sunset Columbarium USA. And that is the same one that Independence Township used. And I can understand why they recommended with such high ratings. The other ones would be just as easy to work with though, but she just took that extra step, which was amazing. Also in front of you is the dimensions of our cemetery gate. And if we decide to go forward, of course, we're gonna have to make sure, get the proper dimensions, probably by our engineer. The one company says that it might not fit under this. So we might have to temporarily, and I think it was solder down there in the first place, we might have to temporarily remove that and then put it back up. So we're not sure if that's gonna work. Any questions?
So on this list that you gave us with Columbarium, Hyber, and ISPAC, where is Sunset?
Columbarium USA.
That's
They
Sunset.
they kind of go by both names, but when you actually get to their main website, it is Sunset.
Lori has a question. Oh.
Go ahead.
How would you anticipate this, something like this rolling out? Would you suggest purchasing one for now and then adding additional ones over the years, or?
I would suggest so that the pad matches, that we actually have the pad and the foundation made for 5 in a row, so that we can expand it. Independence did tell me that if you order 5, you get a huge price break. So if the board is gonna go down this road, of course, I will probably say, what happens if we order 5, and I could bring that back to you, but based on the cost of one, I just kind of had a feeling that we might just be happy with one for now. So we would probably line it up so that in the future, after 96 have been sold, or probably 90, we can start and order another one. As she had also explained, this won't happen until next spring, so that would give us time to deal with our engineer and possibly get the pad ready.
Yes, Karen?
Is there a proposed price per niche, how you say that, like per unit, is there?
Yes, and she went into that as well. On the estimates from Sunset Columbarium USA, off in the corner, I did a little handwritten estimate of what each niche is gonna cost. But then, she's a wealth of information, you can't stop there. You would have to also put in for how much is this pad gonna cost and the foundation. It is gonna be costly. We're gonna have other fees involved as far as the design work, the survey, the area. She said you have to put all of that in there. And then she said we're gonna have to maintain them, so you're gonna put a little bit of fee in there for the maintenance of it and possibly to buy the next one. So what this company has, and all of us can go to the site, it has a niche tabulator. So basically, you put in all of your expenses, and then this will actually print out what your fee should be. So that's something that we'll have to do in the future if we go forward with this. I would come back with some estimates. We'll also have to adjust the ordinance. So there's gonna be plenty of steps, but in order to get to these other steps, we need to decide if we want to move forward.
And I believe the other thing they did bring up is that when you buy one of these and the ashes are put into this, then you don't have a headstone. You don't have the cost of all of the actual burial. So when it all comes out in the wash, it's pretty close to what it actually costs someone to have an actual burial. So it's their choice though. And we are gonna run out of spots, probably not in my lifetime, but the cemetery is only so big, and this is one way of really putting that off for many, many more years.
She said based on the numbers of the past year, each niche or each columbarium is gonna extend the life of the cemetery by 5 years. And I've already visited the spot that hasn't been platted yet with the engineer. So there, in one area, there's probably enough room for 6 foundations that will hold 5 of these. So we can actually grow the cemetery for the township needs for many years to come by going this route.
Any other comments? Yes?
Well, I'd just like to thank Colleen for doing this. It's a big
It's
project.
really
And I really wanted to see something happen with the township, extending the life of that cemetery, because we're gonna pay for it either way, we as well give people a way to stay there. That being said, am I understanding the steps is that we need a motion to move forward with the columbarium project?
Yes, and pick the company if you guys are ready to select the company, because then I wanna go to that company and actually ask them for a legitimate contract, review it by Davis and bring it back to the board.
So we also need to authorize the engineer to give us a bid for this work?
Yes, he's already said that all of that list that he's provided for us, he might not need it, because when he actually visited the site, he says, you know what, you're not gonna need a full survey right now, you're just gonna need this area. But I would have it in the motion to cover all of those things that he was contemplating, and then we can cross it off when they come back.
Okay, so we could do one motion to, for discussion or parts or?
Whatever you're comfortable with,
Well,
if you can fit it all into one, that's fine, if not, we can do 2.
I would, make a motion to move forward with the columbarium project. I think 96 niches, and I think, I'd like to ask that we authorize the township engineer to give a written estimate for board review and approval of the following survey services as listed here: geotechnical design and the creation of contract bid documents, award recommendation, contract administration, inspection, observation of construction work, as stated on this August 9th memo.
Can I ask you one thing for part of your motion? We should say maybe the company that we're going to choose, and then there was also 2 different styles. One was very basic, and then for a slightly higher, which was the 38.9, actually had the columns that really set it off.
Okay. Yes, and I'd also like to suggest or ask for Columbarium USA with the columns from Sunset.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I would like to make the second, but I've got a question for Pauline first. You can bank on the second. I liked your motion. If we do the Columbarium USA, and then we are not sure what the prices are for the engineer yet, because he's going to give us an estimate, should the motion be for Columbarium USA and let you get going on that by itself? Because we can't, I don't see me making a motion on a dollar figure. I have no idea what it's going to
I'm
cost.
gonna bring, and maybe I misunderstood your motion, what my intent is, now that we made this decision, I'm gonna ask the engineer and Columbarium to give me a final estimate and review their agreement, have Mr. Davis review both of those agreement, and hopefully it'll be back on the agenda next September, next month, September, for review and approval of the actual agreement. I'm just looking forward to go forward with the agreements for your reviews.
Okay, Linda, was that your intent?
Yes, bring it back to the board.
That's my second. I second that motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other comments on it? Yes.
I don't have strong feelings, I guess, in either direction. I would prefer to see this project maybe wait until 2023, just because I think we're entering a time of a little bit of uncertainty over the next couple of years. My concern would be we'd move forward with engineering and then decide not to do something right now as costs are very high. and then put the project off and start from scratch in 2023. You know, it's a lot of money coming out of general fund. We didn't talk about where we're budgeting this from. So just my opinion. But like I said, I don't have, you know, not against the project by any means.
Well,
The
I mean,
budget has 24,000, don't even know if that's, we added 24,000 to the budget last year. I'm hoping that that might cover the engineer, not 100% sure, so of course we would have to do a budget amendment. The delivery of it will not even come in until the next budget year, so we would have to budget for that.
Okay, any other comments? We have roll call, please.
Jacob Newby,
Yes.
Lenny Garrett,
Yes.
Karen Gabel, Ed Brightfield,
Yes?
Lori Fisher,
Yes.
Bennett, yes, Supervisor Pearson.
Yes, okay, that passes. Okay, move on to item number 5. And that's the appointments for the committees on SEMCOG, NOAAS, and SISMA. My recommendation is for Jacob Newby to handle those 3 things. He's done it before. The SISMA meets every month, I think, and they meet like on Thursdays. The NOAAS, he's already done that, and SEMCOG, he's already been to all of those meetings before. Anybody have any comments?
Well, I just for clarity, I have not been the representative for SISMA yet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, SISMA though that's why I said it meets on Thursdays, and I think at 10 a.m. They used to be all over Waterford, but I think they're online right now, unless there's somebody else who would like to take SISMA. That's,
I'd be happy to take anything if that.
well, if you would like SISMA, I would recommend SISMA would be great. If you, we do have a grant that we're really working on. I just got notification that they'll be spraying for knotweed all along the roadways here in the next week, and then in September they'll be spraying for the Phragmites in September, I think.
September
7th.
6th.
What day was it?
6th.
Yeah, September 6th. And the project that we have is like a 15-acre project up at Watershed Park. So if you would like SISMA, I'll change that and I'll say Jacob Newby, I would recommend him for SEMCOG and NOAAS and Treasurer Fisher for SISMA. Any comments?
I'll make
Comments?
a motion to approve the appointments as indicated.
Second.
And we have a second? Still no comments? Could we have roll call, please?
Ed Brightfield,
Yes?
Karen Gabel,
Yes.
Lenny Garrett,
Yes.
Jacob Newby,
Yes.
Lori Fisher,
Yes.
Bennett, yes, Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. Okay, very good. Item number 6 is discussion on the American Rescue Plan and possible uses. I was at the OCATS meeting, and once again, I queried that question to everybody there, and they're all in the same boat. We left off last month tabling this, and the only information I have now is possibly we might be able to use it for building ventilation, where we could put, I believe it's infrared or whatever, scrubbers in the return air that would kill any viruses or whatever. That's one thing I found. Has anybody else found anything else? I mean, internet is what we've always found, but
I thought, and I didn't reread through this packet, but weren't we allowed to invest in capital improvement projects that would relate to the pandemic or a pandemic? And it didn't
let me ask you
specify-
this, what do we qualify for? I believe that I asked last month, actually, that you would come back with possibly a report on did we have any expenses or losses or anything like that.
We did not have any losses.
Yeah, I think that's one of the criteria is that we have to have suffered some loss. I mean, I'm looking. If you got any suggestions, please let me know. I mean, we've discussed this with all the supervisors, and we're all at the same point that we're talking broadband. And yes, go ahead, Karen.
Just the only comment I have is I've asked around to 3 or 4 townships and villages and cities in the area, and nobody's getting any decisions yet. I know Orion is appointing a special committee to meet next month, and Oxford met last night, and they're pushing off the decision. So, I mean, I don't think anybody's jumping on a decision yet. So I haven't heard anybody pull the trigger on what they're gonna use the funds for yet.
And the reason being, I believe, is because we're all hoping they're gonna change some of the rules here, and that's what we're all holding out for. We do have time, we don't have to pick, I think, until December or something like that, but we have time, and we're all hoping, Congresswoman Slotkin advised me that it's a moving target right now, and so they're all hoping that there's something that they might add on here that all of us might be able to use, which we're waiting to hear, and so are all the other people. But anybody else have any comments? I mean, we can table this again, we have time.
I don't mind tabling this because it seems like every month we might come up with something different, like the ventilation system. I just read that too, that we can use it for that. Broadband has always been out there, so I think it's kind of cool to still bring it up every month because we might have a new idea and we might want to check that out. So I'll move to table it again until next month, and we can just continue keeping a list of things that we're interested in.
I'll support that.
Okay, I don't think I'll do a roll call on this anyhow. Roll call, please. Make Pauline work a little harder.
Ed Redfield.
Yes, and I've got a question after we
Yes.
roll call vote.
Pardon?
You want me to ask it now? On page, I want to just make sure I've got it right. Michigan Township, page, looks like 4, revenue loss.
We didn't
Okay.
have any revenue loss.
Okay, I'm looking at that. I noticed that I see some places where government services can be used. You see that?
Yes, if we qualify for the revenue loss, it expands our door a little bit more. So that's why we're supposed to do that formula that MTA.
Right, I see the formula,
Yeah, so we need to do that formula to figure out if we qualify.
but
for
we
the
did
revenue
not
loss.
qualify, is that correct?
Well, that's what I asked the treasurer.
We did not
She said we
qualify for
didn't
this,
qualify.
so my thinking would kind of like, nice, but thanks, but no thanks. I just
Yes.
wanted to verify, was I reading it right? We did not qualify the list. Okay,
Okay.
that was, I apologize for that.
I'm gonna start roll call over again.
Yes.
I'd like to ask another question. No.
Linda Garrett.
Yes.
Karen Gabel.
Yes.
Ed Redfield.
Yes,
Jacob Ruby.
Yes.
Lori Fisher.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes. Okay, that is tabled. We'll move on to public forum. If anybody would like to speak in public forum, just, stand up and give us your name, and then this is where we listen. If anybody would like to speak.
Hey Bruce, Rob Guzanek. Earlier, the board voted to, condemn the guy's house, and if he doesn't get it torn down in 60 days, you guys are gonna use the township funds to tear it down. I understand that, you can go back and tax them. But for, 25 years, we've been trying to get those judge's orders on Copper Hills done, where we get the 2 test wells that were ordered by the judge. About 6 months ago, I gave you the same information about, can we use, township funds? Let's get those wells drilled, let's get the water testing that's supposed to have been done, and then you can go ahead and tax lean Copper Hills. It's a little, if we're doing it for one thing, can we do it for the other?
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Ron Riddle. I just wanted to say one item about the gentleman here. How does the eviction moratorium fit into that demolition? You might want to consider that. The other thing, I sent you all the board information on the internet broadband services that are available and are upcoming. If you have any questions on that document, on what's available now and what's coming in the future, feel free to call me, and I could give you a lot more information on how that works and how things are coming about, because obviously, internet out here is terrible. So, and there's a very limited availability everywhere, and what's coming available, especially satellites and other wireless capabilities, are pretty much the future rather than cabling of some sort, because that takes too much effort and infrastructure to do, so it costs. So that's why I sent that idea to you. So if you have any questions, feel free to call me.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes?
Yeah, John Schramm, 166 Annandale. I've got actually two issues. One, I want to respond to Supervisor's comments from the end of the last meeting, July 19th. And I just can't stand by and let those go unanswered because we don't get a chance to respond. The first is the deplorable example of democracy and transparency in the appointment to the vacant seat to the board. The supervisor should be embarrassed by his actions and a possible violation of the Open Meetings Act. The second is to challenge the supervisor's comments as far as the dock ordinance fiasco. Mr. Pearson, in 2019, said he did not see problems with the Lakeville Lake docks and only responded after being threatened with a lawsuit by a resident. He then said he had no option but to enforce the flawed ordinance. In truth, the supervisor could not be sued forcing him to enforce the ordinance. He could be recalled, but he could not be sued. He also had a very real option to amend the ordinance and not threaten and ticket nearly 60 to 90 tax-paying Lake residents. Mr. Pearson also did not respond to my question as to whether he would give serious consideration to another proposal to amend the dock ordinance. Secondly, I would like to argue for the amendment of your very flawed dock ordinance. I'm not here because of my own case. I won my case and charges against me have been dismissed. But I am here to help all property owners on this lake who are in a similar situation. There's a terrible injustice being done. No one should have to go through scores of hours, sleepless nights, going through 30 to 100 years of photos to prove yourself innocent. You have to prove ourselves innocent. This is a different country. Many Lakeville property owners are going to court next Monday. To those who may be listening, please consider the dock ordinance may be severely flawed and unenforceable. Now, I'm not an attorney, and they should not consider my comments as legal advice, but they should consult with an attorney prior to succumbing to the wishes of the township. There are three compelling reasons why the Addison Township ordinance is severely flawed. The three reasons are: one, the ordinance does not meet the standards of court ordinance, as stated in Section 2 of Chapter 7 Local Ordinance in the Handbook for Municipal Officials published by the Michigan Municipal League. Second, the ordinance does not conform to the provisions of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. Third, the ordinance is not enforceable by the township's own actions. The Michigan Municipal League requires that a local ordinance meet the following requirements: serve a public purpose, be consistent with state and federal laws, contain clear and precise language, and be reasonable in nature. The ordinance does not meet any of these strict requirements. It does not advance the public purpose for which it was intended, that being to limit boats, control funneling and keyholing, and limit marina slips on the lake. Second, it's inconsistent with Michigan laws. Michigan law only regulates permanent docks and not seasonal docks. Third, its language is not clear and precise. Addison Township is trying to impose regulations on the shape of a dock that is not at all stated in that ordinance. The ordinance only limits the length and width of the dock and not its configuration. The ordinance says a dock cannot exceed 35 feet and is silent as to its configuration. As an example, an L-shaped dock that has two 14-foot sections, although they may be in an L shape, it is a 28-foot dock and complies with the ordinance. If the ordinance was clear and precise, nearly half of lake owner docks would not be non-compliant. Fourth, it is not reasonable in nature. The shape of a dock does not take into consideration its intended use as a social place, or as a place to moor and protect the boat. Lakeville Lake docks are reasonable in design, reasonable in their use, and do not impede lake navigation. The ordinance ignores changes in technology, lifestyle, and proper utilization. It ignores the issue of watercraft, wave runners, paddleboats, and the evolution of portable electronic equipment and communication technologies. Docks are no longer just used for mooring boats, but now for entertainment and parenting children in and near the water. The ordinance was enacted in 1988, 2 years prior to the American with Disabilities Act. It therefore cannot conform to that act. It does not provide for safe use of a dock by a disabled person. My example, I've got a neighbor who's severely disabled. My mother, until her death last fall, was severely disabled from age. But taking somebody on a wheelchair on a narrow dock to try to get into a pontoon boat, which is her love of life, to take a pontoon boat around this lake is dangerous to her and to me. Get around in front of her, try to lift her up, to get around the boat, etc. The township's own ordinance, own actions, this ordinance is not enforceable. Not too long ago, the township had a similar problem with its ordinance regarding the setback for septic systems. The township had a 100-foot setback requirement, while the county had a 50-foot setback requirement. Many residents sought a variance for the 50-foot setback. In every case, the variance was granted. The township attorney, Robert Davis, told the board at that time that if you have an ordinance and the majority of people ask and receive a variance, you don't have an ordinance. The similarity to the stock problem is compelling. The township made no effort to enforce the dock ordinance for over 30 years. They made no effort to educate lake owners of this ordinance in 1988 or thereafter. By Township Supervisor Bruce Pearson's own comments at the July 19, 2021 meeting, he said that prior to these citations being issued, he saw no problem with any of the docks on Lakeville Lake. He also stated that he only acted to enforce the ordinance after being threatened with legal action if he did not. Prior to 2020, the township made no effort to document noncompliance or nonconformity. What more evidence does one need to prove an ordinance is flawed than having nearly half of the property owners either being noncompliant or nonconforming? In addition, it is nearly impossible to find any other lake in Michigan that has and enforces a similarly poorly written draconian ordinance on docks. Based on all of the above, it is clear the Addison Township does not have an ordinance that can be enforced. The Addison Township Ordinance 13.03.01 needs to be totally rewritten. Current and future ticketing and legal action against dock owners needs to be immediately halted and existing legal action dismissed. We have a flawed ordinance and it should be amended. It's in the best interest of the township and the lake property owners. The township is hemorrhaging money on legal and court costs. The lake owners and taxpayers are losing sleep, hiring attorneys, spending hours and days trying to prove their innocence and defend themselves. It's a serious criminal violation, not a civil, criminal. The situation is unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay. We'll move on to Addison Township Board reports. Anybody have a report from any of the boards that you guys are on? Any communications or legal reports? Well, we have Mr. Davis
We
here.
received two communications, one from Ron and Rob, which he already addressed, and the second would be from Dennis Jennings. And his message is that he wants to express support for a single waste hauler in the township. And both of these correspondence are on file at the township if anyone wants to look at them.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the supervisor's report. Well, some of you might notice that there are some of the speed radar indicators that are going into Leonard right now. We put one in front of the fire hall. And right now, we're a little lenient on the speed there. We're giving everybody, I think, 12 miles over, but eventually we're going to change that back down to the actual speed. We're letting everybody have fair notice that there's one of the indicators there. And then we have another one that's on Leonard Road as people go to the elementary school where it's a 25-mile-an-hour zone. And we're hoping that'll help people slow down. Some people, when they see that, all of a sudden they realize, they look at their own speedometer and they realize that they're over the speed limit. So it's a courteous thing, but the officers will eventually be setting up there to make sure that everybody adheres to it, because we've had many complaints there. The Christmas in Action group, we were able to help one of our senior citizens. She had a wind damage, the siding was blown off of her house, and Mike McDonald and I went out after Christmas in Action, bought all the siding, and Mike and I went out and we put the siding up on her house there, just so that the weather wouldn't get to into the wood before the winter. I'd like to thank Dan Davis. As you know, Dan Davis is the one who also donated the roof to the township. We had a part of the walkway that the sides, because however it was engineered or whatever, they didn't understand that it needed gutters there also. But anyways, he handled that and had it all fixed. If you look on the way out, you can hardly notice. He put aluminum there. It's all perfect. And they wouldn't take any township money for that. So that was a very nice donation. And as you all know, we had a terrible storm. We're out of electricity here, but not as bad as some of the other communities. We were very fortunate, but we were out. And as you know, it was mostly all tree damage. Brandon Township, if you look, all their poles were just snapped in half, one after another, up M15. We didn't have any of that here. We just had the trees, went and took the lines down. And I'll talk about the garbage pickup. I've had an awful lot of calls on a one-hauler garbage pickup. Some people also call and say they don't want it. And the reasons that we're looking at it is, first of all, that we'd have a truck once a week. And it's a lot easier on our roads. We're spending an awful lot of money on our roads, and I talked to Oxford Township, and they got 8 or 9 trucks, 6 days a week, running all their roads to pick up the garbage. I believe we have about 5 different companies here that are running all the time, and they're going down every road that all the other trucks go down because everybody has a different hauler. We're also looking at it because of the price. We do know that if we all use one hauler, the price will come down dramatically. We're also looking for recycling. Some of the companies that are out here right now do not offer recycling, and our people want recycling. And they also want debris pickup for clippings and stuff like that. So a lot of these companies don't offer it. And then we also have some companies that have been leaving garbage for weeks out on the road. They just haven't been picking it up. We kind of want to hold somebody accountable and have some kind of power over these garbage companies and make sure that when one goes bankrupt, they don't just walk away, or if one decides that they don't have enough workers and we're a small and they only have a few people up here, they just don't come to Addison Township. They go somewhere else where they have a lot of contracts, and then they get up here whenever they can. I think that if we were all under one, we probably would fare better, that we'd always have our garbage picked up, or we'd have some kind of enforcement in our contract that it would be taken care of. But if people don't want it, that's fine. But I'm just offering that because we've had an awful lot of people ask us about it, and I think that'll be up for discussion at a later time. As far as docks, I'd love to go to Eagle because I just traveled all the way over to Commerce Township on my motorcycle for the supervisors meeting, and I went through an awful lot of lakes, and they have an awful lot of docks, and they have different formations of them, and they're all controlled by Eagle because they were temporary docks. They weren't permanent docks. I'm okay with that. Temporary docks, that's up to Eagle, and Eagle doesn't regulate temporary docks. So I have no problem, and I don't think this board would have a problem if that would improve the dock situation on the lake. We have an ordinance that says you can't have 2 docks. Eagle doesn't say that if the other one is a seasonal dock, so that is another option. Other than that, I really don't have anything else, except that they will be spraying for phragmites, like I said earlier. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn, and the next meeting will be September 20th.
Well, I'll so move.
And any comment? None? Roll call, please.
Jim Brown. Yes. Jacob McGee.
Yes.
Lexi Schmidt.
Yes.
Henry Good.
Yes?
Linda.
Yes.
Bennett, yes. Supervisor Pearson.
Yes, and thank you very much.